Christian pastor and influencer Dale Partridge posted the following on X. Parents, stop putting your daughters into jiu-jitsu and wrestling. You're letting 14-year-old boys grope, mount, and dominate your little girl. Yes, teach them self-defense, but do so with self-awareness and weapons training, not ground fighting. What underpins Dale's comment is a complementarian belief that God designed men and women differently. Men were created to lead, provide, and protect. Women were created to be helpers, nurturers, and life bearers. God gave men larger frames and greater strength to fulfill their role as protectors. Women, being the weaker sex physically, are more often in need of protection, especially from unrighteous men who abuse their strength. I agree with Dale on gender roles, but I disagree with his take that it's wrong to put your daughters in grappling classes or that guys and girls should never roll together. He questions jiu-jitsu's effectiveness for self-defense and raises concerns about modesty. I'm not going to gloss over those points. I'll address them directly and explain why your girls can train in jiu-jitsu without compromising their purity or femininity. Now, before I start, everything I say applies to kids as well as to men and women. That includes parents wondering if they should enroll their young daughters or teen girls in jiu-jitsu classes, or moms considering a class for themselves. Secondly, though I'm going to focus exclusively on jiu-jitsu, you can apply what I'm saying to other grappling martial arts such as wrestling and judo. I'm less familiar with the specifics of those, so that's why I'm going to stick with what I know. Now, Dale isn't against self-defense training for girls. He just believes weapons training is superior to ground fighting. So let's break that down. There are three main categories of fighting. You have striking martial arts, which is standing fighting. You have grappling martial arts, which is ground fighting, and then you have weapons training. Now, weapons are for extreme scenarios, life or death situations. I'm pro weapons training, but it can't be your only tool. If that's all you know, you're more likely to rely on it even when it might not be necessary. Untrained people reach for weapons because they have no other skills. Now, in a fallen world, women need tools to defend themselves in non-lethal ways. Also, not every country enjoys the same gun laws as the United States. Anyone walking around with a loaded handgun in my country of Canada will be arrested even if they possess a restricted firearms license.
They put you in jail right away.
And by the way, they can't also carry a knife for self-defense or even bear spray. It sucks, but we have to work within the system that we've been born into. Now, striking martial arts depend heavily on strength and power. Even a man trained in striking may struggle to knock someone out, especially the bigger they are. A woman being smaller and lighter faces an even steeper challenge. Jiu-jitsu, by contrast, is built for leverage, momentum, and technique, giving smaller people the ability to control and submit larger opponents. And because the average person you'll meet on the street is untrained in grappling, it provides a massive advantage to those who know the techniques. Let me show you some examples. First up is Demetrius Johnson at a jiu-jitsu tournament. He is 5'3" and weighed in at about 155 pounds in this match. And he's fighting another man an entire foot taller at 6'3", who is nearly 100 pounds heavier. He's also a skilled opponent as they are both brown belts. Now, despite the size difference, Johnson is able to flip him over and submit him, winning the match. The point in highlighting this is that is exactly what jiu-jitsu is all about. The more technical person can submit or subdue an opponent, even if they're much smaller. If he can do that to a brown belt who's been training for at least 7 or 8 years, how easily do you think that Johnson can subdue a random person on the street who has no training? Okay, you may be thinking, but these are men. Well, let's start looking at some females. First, here's a match between two kids at gray belt level. The boy goes for a headlock and attempts a takedown, but the girl immediately counters by using her legs to flip him over and trap his head. From there, she isolates an arm and executes an armbar, a submission that hyperextends the elbow, bending it backwards until he taps. That whole sequence requires awareness, control, and excellent timing, not brute strength. Now let's look at a teenage girl matched against a trained wrestler. He's athletic and aggressive, but she keeps her composure. Notice how she uses all 4 limbs to create space and keep him from mounting her. She then uses her legs to cut off circulation from his neck in a triangle choke. To seal the deal, she also grabs his arm and hyperextends it, forcing him to tap. Then in this last clip, we have an adult match, a female black belt rolling with a male brown belt. So he's just one rank below her. He's bigger and stronger, yet she systematically takes his back and controls his posture. Then she grabs his collar and applies a gi choke that cuts off circulation to his brain. He taps. Now, remember, this guy is a brown belt, so he's been training for about 7 to 8 years and has size advantage over her, and she was still able to make him tap. Imagine how easily she'd submit the average guy with zero experience in the streets. Now you might be thinking, sure, but these are all controlled gym settings. What about the real world where people fight dirty? Well, let me introduce you to Monique Bastos from Brazil. She's a young woman who does MMA and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and she fights at the 115-pound division. Now there were 2 men who tried stealing her phone. Look at her. How do you think this 115-pound girl fared against 2 male attackers? Well, she locked him in a triangle choke for 20 minutes while the attacker cried for his mom. And the other attacker fled. Just look at her in this video. She's exerting little effort to the point where she can laugh because her jiu-jitsu skills allow her to subdue people. She doesn't have to be stronger than him. She's more technical. And in jiu-jitsu, technicality allows you to even the playing field with someone who has strength. Oh, and by the way, this is the second time that she used her jiu-jitsu to subdue male attackers. The first time, the attackers also had knives. Next, here's Polyana Viana, a 5'4", 115-pound UFC fighter. A man tried to rob her. Well, she ended up throwing strikes to stun him, then transitioned to a rear naked choke, which is a jiu-jitsu move where you wrap your arm around the opponent's neck from behind and apply pressure until they pass out or tap. And there's no tapping in the real world. Just look at this video. This was him after Viana was done with him.
So she threw 2 punches, a kick, and dropped the clown. Turns out he had no gun. What he does have? A broken face.
Now, these aren't just stories. They're real-life examples of women using technique to dominate dangerous men. Yes, these women were highly trained, but that's the point. The more trained you are, the more effective you are, especially against untrained attackers who rely on brute strength alone. So is jiu-jitsu good for self-defense? I would argue it's the best martial art for women in particular.
Best.
Because it uses leverage, momentum, and technicality to overcome strength and size advantages. And it can also keep you safe while inflicting the least amount of damage on an aggressor. The second concern that Dale raises is about immodesty. He says, you're letting your 14-year-old boy grope, mount, and dominate your little girl. Though I have some pushback, it's not an entirely unfair critique. Jiu-jitsu can be immodest, but it doesn't have to be. Like anything else, it depends on how it's practiced. I mean, think of beachwear. A woman can wear an immodest bikini or a modest 2-piece. Jiu-jitsu works the same exact way. You can dress immodestly or you can choose gear that promotes decency. Now, there are 2 forms of jiu-jitsu. First is gi, which is a thick, full-body uniform that covers everything. It is very modest. And then you have no-gi, which are rash guards, spats, which are kind of like leggings, and or shorts. There's more variation in modesty with no-gi. So no-gi is where the modesty concerns usually show up. Here's a viral video that illustrates the critique. A teenage girl in shorts wraps her legs around a boy with lots of movement and close contact. In the viral post, the caption reads, "This boy is fighting an entirely different battle." Now, to be blunt, this isn't great. I wouldn't want my son or daughter in this exact scenario. But this doesn't represent all no-gi training. Both men and women can wear spats with shorts over top. Here's a woman jiu-jitsu practitioner wearing the same, with a rash guard that fully covers her chest and shorts over top of her spats. That outfit in particular brings a solid level of modesty to no-gi jiu-jitsu. But if that's not even up to your standards and you want even more modesty, just stick to gi only training. The gi is very thick fabric and it covers everything. The bottom line is jiu-jitsu can be immodest, but it doesn't have to be. And Christians should train with modesty in mind, especially in co-ed atmospheres. Now you might ask, why not just separate guys and girls when rolling? If jiu-jitsu is effective and it can be practiced modestly, why not just keep the sexes apart? Well, the first thing I have to say is there's a difference between the safe, controlled environment of a training gym and the intensity of a jiu-jitsu tournament, where the goal is to win and you're not supposed to hold back. See, in most adult tournaments, divisions are gender segregated, which is good. When more dangerous submissions are allowed and competitors are given time to work out of bad positions, it would be irresponsible to mix sexes. It's wrong for a guy to hurt a girl, and a tournament isn't the time to go easy. That's why women should be in their own brackets, and for adults, that is the case. Now with kids, I have no issue with co-ed divisions. They're less technical, their bodies are more similar before puberty, and safety is a super high priority in kids tournaments. The more dangerous moves are forbidden, and referees step in early, like stopping an armbar once it's locked in, rather than letting the kid risk an arm break trying to escape. They have a short leash for safety, and so if anyone gets hurt at a kids tournament, it's generally accidental. Where I do have a problem is with team divisions being co-ed. Generally, ages 12 and 13 are where there's a longer leash for getting hurt, and especially at ages 16 and 17 where they're almost treated like adult divisions. So I'm not going to defend youth divisions being co-ed, as I believe they should be gender segregated in tournaments. But now what about co-ed jiu-jitsu classes? First, while each gym is different, it's not uncommon for both men and women to decline rolling with the opposite sex. For example, here's a well-known jiu-jitsu coach and content creator named Chu Jitsu discussing this very issue.
Is it common? Well, I mean, kind of. I think that most people have at least a little bit of discomfort when they first roll with the opposite sex at first, because you got to think about it, man. I mean, how often, Rod, are we this close to the, are we that close to the opposite sex, right? We're never that close to them, typically, unless it's like an intimate setting. So now we're putting ourselves into the gym every single day, rolling with them, and we're that close, right? That's an awkward thing, especially for women, but it can be awkward for men. And, you know, I've had a lot of times in situations where women have come into the gym and they've told me, Chewy, I don't feel comfortable rolling with the guys. And if they tell me that, I'm like, no big deal. You can roll with the women, and then you can sit out some rounds if you need to, and you take it at your own pace, because this is your training, not mine. And on the flip side, I've had guys come into the gym who, for religious reasons and even for situations like yours where they just don't feel comfortable with it, they're wondering, hey, is it okay to, you know, refuse a roll? Yeah, that's fine. You can refuse a roll. Just be polite about it, right? Like, if you're going to refuse a roll, whether it be a man or a woman, just simply say, listen, I'm sorry I can't roll with you. I just don't feel comfortable yet. So again, sorry, you know, you'll have to find another partner. No big deal. It's polite.
So he believes as a coach that each gender can refuse a roll respectfully. If you don't want to roll with a woman, you don't have to. Each guy has different reasons why it might not be right for him. For example, I appreciated this guy on a podcast sharing why he doesn't.
But like, I'm one of the guys, I won't roll with a female, and it's not because I don't see anything wrong with it. And I'm also fully aware that, man, there's some women can manhandle me. You know, just aware. So it's not even about that. For us, it's more of like I don't want to dive into that testimony as far as our marriage, but like, it was just one of those things that, like, man, I messed up several years ago and almost tanked my marriage. It's just something I'm a little more guarded towards, not because there's anything, you know, Tumbles, or we'll talk to her. You know, first time I said, hey, I'm just not going to roll with female. She's like, well, there's nothing sexual about this. And I said, no, I totally agree. Again, I make that decision not because I think it's wrong, not that I think it's sexual. It's just a guard for my marriage. And a lot of that's based on my own personal failure there.
Now that said, something is lost when co-ed rolling is removed. Now for guys, rolling with women teaches men how to roll with restraint and control. If a woman is smaller or less skilled than you, you shift down a gear and learn to be more technical, applying techniques without relying on strength. This helps you to be a better, more skilled fighter and allows you to experience applying techniques with minimal force. Now for girls, it's even more important. Self-defense training should prepare women for the realities of dealing with a man's weight, strength, and pressure. If a girl only ever rolls with others that are her own size, she won't be ready when it actually happens. Training with guys gives her the chance to adapt and problem solve under pressure, figuring out through trial and error how to apply techniques against bigger, stronger opponents. You don't want her first exposure to that reality to come during a real-life attack. The goal isn't to humiliate her, as Dale suggests by mentioning that you don't want a 14-year-old boy dominating your little girl. It's to equip her. If she drills escapes from Mount 500 times with partners of varying sizes, she's building real confidence and muscle memory. So if she's ever mounted in a real attack, it's not new. She knows what to do because she's trained for it.
I know jujitsu.
That's why it's crucial for women to train with men in a controlled gym environment. It gives them a safe space to gradually adjust to the pressure, pace, and unpredictability of a male opponent. No, it's not the same as a real-life assault, but it's a whole lot closer than drilling with someone your own size who's going easy. The discomfort is part of the preparation. Controlled intensity now beats uncontrolled violence later. There's also a practical reality that most jiu-jitsu and martial arts classes are male-dominated. It's not uncommon for 90% or more to be men.
But if you look at the actual numbers of men and women in combat sports gyms, the women are almost always, vastly outnumbered by the men. Generally at least 10 to 1.
We don't all live in large cities where a gym can run a women's only class. So if most guys took on this mentality, it would be hard for women to learn these life-saving skills. If they're the only woman in a class in a smaller town, they're stuck. And if there's only 1 or 2 ladies to train with, they're getting substandard training because they're not getting to work on techniques with people of different sizes and skill levels. As parents, our greatest concern is that our daughters come home safe. Jiu-Jitsu gives them the tools to make that happen. It allows smaller, weaker individuals to control larger, stronger attackers. In the gym, it can be practiced with modesty, and even positions that seem uncomfortable serve a purpose. They let her drill positions in training so she's ready for real life. And at the end of the day, isn't that exactly what we're after? Earlier in the video, I referenced God's view of gender roles, known as complementarianism. If you'd like to learn more about this belief and the distinct roles that God designed for men and women, pick up the book The Grand Design, Male and Female He Created Them by Owen Strachan and Gavin Peacock. I've got links to the paperback and Kindle versions in the video description. Thanks so much for watching. If you found this video helpful, would you mind clicking like before leaving, as it'll help the video reach even more people.